Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Sparring Partners, an MMA podcast. I am Coby McKinley, joined as always, because we're one of one today, but hopefully, usually, and always, Brad Jones is on the other side.
That's me.
Yep, that's Brad. Um, so today for our first episode, we're going to talk a little bit of UFC Fight Night, Covington, Woodley, the fallout from that, kind of our overall impressions and takeaways. We'll also be talking about UFC 253, Costa Adesanya. We've got that co-main event and the rest of the card, and referring to the rest of the card as the rest of the card is a little bit of a preview about how I feel about the card overall. And then, yeah, man, that's kind of our general blueprint. But as podcasts often do, uh, we can venture into some other ways. So to get things started, I'd say we kick it to Saturday, last night, as of recording the podcast. Brad, what are your general takeaways from last night?
The two biggest ones are I feel like it's the Woodley, it's how Woodley and Cerrone look. The Chimaev angle is there. It's there. That's like your angle of like, oh, there's like, there's a young upstart, there's some potential, some new blood coming up. But the biggest thing you end up coming away with is your Woodley and Cowboy both looking over the hill. Woodley especially looking just terrible, just out like 15 rounds straight, splat. Um, Woodley looking so bad that I don't want to see him fight again in the UFC. He can if he wants to, but he's going to now take on the role of I'm ushering guys into the top of the division. I'm not a guy that's going to be contending for belts anymore. I'm going to be fighting a Jeff Neal. I'm going to be fighting a Neil Magny next. And I'm like, okay, does Woodley want to do that? I don't think so. Um, but yeah, Woodley's in a rough spot. Cerrone in a slightly better spot, but like still pretty rough. He could go on. I don't expect him to retire anytime soon. He could go on to Bellator probably, or just whatever UFC can keep him around. They just need to decide
Yeah.
what they're going to do with him. He needs to pick a weight class. Um, I don't know that welterweight's the best option, but lightweight's not really either. It's rough. It's a rough spot for Cerrone.
Yeah, and we can talk about all those in a little bit more detail. But I came away from last night's card with the overwhelming feeling that uh, I didn't learn much over the course of the evening. Every event, we learned something more. We learned a new angle of attack, a new strategy works against a formerly bulletproof guy. We learn a variety of things every event, which is why I love the sport, and I'm sure you love the sport, and so many other people. We learn a lot every event, and last night, as fun as it was, I came away with the overwhelming feeling that I had not learned a lot. I came away having a lot of my beliefs heading into the card reaffirmed.
Mm-hmm.
For you talked about the Woodley performance. Um, it didn't take a professional fight analyst to picture the fight going this way. The backing up to the cage, the just more the high pace of Covington wearing Woodley down, and we did see him get stopped by the injury, but leading up to that injury, it was what we pretty much expected. If Woodley's going to lose, this is how he's going to lose, and he's probably going to lose like that. Same for Cowboy. Yeah, he's fun. He's fun to watch. He did not. convince me, and he didn't convince a lot of people, that he should stick around. You had mentioned it. He is durable, but less so. And we knew that coming into Saturday. And that was reaffirmed. Even we go back to Johnny Walker early in the card. I'm referencing, fight 3. So yeah, just to run it down, right? Some of the things that we didn't learn that much. Mackenzie Dern, first round submission.
Submissions.
That is what
Still
she does.
Submissions.
She messed up on stand up, fell down because of it,
Mm-hmm.
and then got a submission, which is what we've come to expect out of Mackenzie Dern's game. And then we have Johnny Walker and Ryan Spann. Again, a very fun fight. But outside of not dislocating his shoulder in a post-fight celebration, there was nothing I saw that was new out of Johnny Walker.
No, if anything, Johnny Walker showed that he still has the same holes in his game that have been big issues the past 3 fights. I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think the closest thing we came to learning this event is that Khamzat Chimaev has one punch KO power, which a lot of people, including myself, I mean, the look of him, we all figure that he hits hard, but I didn't figure he hit like that at the top level. So that was good to learn. Although Khamzat Chimaev is feeling more and more like we're being dealt one piece of a 1,000-piece puzzle every, couple days or whatever. We're slowly putting together, but he's doing such great work and so quick. We're just not seeing a lot.
Yeah, they have to find someone that's gonna, push him and challenge him.
Yeah, so he's heading to fight Maya next. And yeah, that's I do want to we can talk more about that one when it rolls around, but let's talk about where does Covington go from here? Who does he fight?
Well, he doesn't fight Usman next, so I think he definitely waits out the rest of the year. He waits for that December title fight between Usman and Burns, and he prays and hopes that Burns wins, because if Burns wins the belt, then his first defense is against Coby. Coby doesn't have to do anything else, but just sit till December and book his title fight. Now, if Usman wins again in December, he doesn't have a lot of options. Honestly, it's like rankings wise, logically wise in the division, you would book him against Leon Edwards for the number 1 contender spot. But no one wants to fight Leon Edwards. And I honestly don't blame him, because Leon Edwards is not doing himself any favors at all. He's not selling any of these fights. Where's he been? He has not come back. Just saying, he hasn't fought this whole year. Where's he been?
No, man. Leon Edwards, he's like a man at a time. There was a time where you could just show up and win, and by the meritocracy that was the UFC circa 2008, you would just rise to the top. That time is not now. Leon Edwards, unfortunately, just hasn't done, other than getting in a backstage brawl with Street Jesus, he hasn't done a lot to curry favor with fans, or to really drum up. We were saying it on Saturday. I think I said it to you. Leon Edwards needs to fire his manager. I don't know who he is, because if he's not doing, promotion for Leon Edwards, he's sure as shit not doing promotion for himself. But I don't know who his manager is. but the dude has got to be the worst in the business. Does he even have a manager? That I'm genuinely
Good question.
curious if he even has a manager, because there's no one as talented as Leon Edwards. Dude, you're supposed to be a dark horse of the division for like a few fights. like Kamaev is the dark horse of the middleweight or welterweight division right now. He's not. He's like, the hardcores are knowing who he is, but Leon Edwards is on a tear. He's a top level welterweight with, unfortunately, no name value, which, like you said earlier, makes it so that no one wants to fight the dude. So there are some people calling for a Covington Edwards bout, but there is not a chance that Covington takes that fight. There's no way that anyone in the top 5 takes that fight.
Leon has no fan support. Leon
He has no
support behind him, pushing him for anything.
I have a feeling he's gonna although Dana White he does this every so often in regards to Leon Edwards, where he will like hint to the media like, oh, Leon's got big things heading his way.
Yeah, he does do that.
And then you'll just never hear about it again until the next time Dana White and the boys are cooking up something good for Leon Edwards.
Cooking up their next number 1 contender at welterweight. They literally like, I'm dead serious where I'm like, Chimaev might get a welterweight title shot before Leon Edwards does.
No, I think that is, I think Chimaev is the exact type of dude to take a fight against Edwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. The segue is pretty good into what Chimaev should do next, because of just, he goes to welterweight. Logically, next he goes to welterweight. He fights Damian Maia. Once you get to that level, I feel like you don't need to do the bounce in between divisions anymore. Let's just pick one. Let's settle down. Let's do welterweight. I feel like it's the more logical division. So you take on Maia. I favor him to TKO, knock out Maia in that fight. Maia's like 42. Yeah, he's old man. He wanted one more. He wanted Diego Sanchez. And they were like, "Oh, hey, how about instead we fight this kid who's younger than us, who's just out here murdering people? Take on this kid instead." And Maya's like, "Okay, I guess that'll work." But no, I see him brutalizing Maia, and then he's in the top 15. And if he keeps fighting at the
Maya's
pace of
7.
the UFC 4 character, he just turns him out. He'll just steamroll through everybody.
Dude, he's not in the top 15 if he beats Maia. Maia's number 7 in the world.
Still ranked that high?
He's number 7 in the world. If Chimaev beats Maia convincingly, Chimaev is in the top 10.
Fight after that, then.
Yeah, you could. Mm-hmm. Well, no, that's the thing though. Is it
with you should, but you could. Logic, you could.
With as active as he wants to be, I don't think that's in the interest. It depends on what he wants. If he wanted to be as active as possible until he wanted to fast track his way to a certain spot in the division, or if he's a dude that just wants to stay this active, the higher ranked you go, the less obviously if you want to be that active, you're going to have to start giving a lot of guys a lot of chances as opposed to advancing your own career. At a certain point, you're not going to be able to rack up, 4 fights in the span of 60 days.
The guys in the top 10 aren't gonna book to fight back to back like that. It's just not going to happen.
No.
But it'll be interesting what he does. He's a savage. He's got some potential in it for sure.
Yeah, and so we've kind of gone over the place on this card, but there's really just one. We kind of did one half of the equation. We got to do the other half of the equation. We already talked about Colby Covington, but we got to talk about Woodley. We have to talk about Woodley. because, like I said earlier, we had talked about how Woodley loses this fight. People have always talked about how Woodley loses this fight: inactivity, backing up, and getting wrestled against the cage, and then eventually wrestled onto the floor. And that is exactly what happened. Um, it was you. Every time Woodley fights this way, um, people are kind of surprised is the wrong word, but they just think that, the fight against Usman, off night. That didn't look like him.
Mm.
Off night, he loses to Burns, and you're like, oh well, maybe Burns is a young gun. He's very athletic. Maybe he just he overwhelmed Woodley,
Yeah.
and then this happens, and we're just seeing a repeat of the same fight over and over and it's guys who, like in Gilbert Burns doesn't normally fight like that,
No.
and he was able to execute that game plan.
They're
Um,
all variations of the Rory McDonald game plan. The Rory McDonald laid out the game plan of how to beat Woodley all those years ago. It went to
mhm,
174 when they fought.
yeah,
And all of these guys have put together a variation of the same game plan to do it, because Woodley's been this way the whole time. If Coby had fought Woodley in Dallas instead of fighting Darren Till, Coby would have done that to him and taken his belt, and all these other guys would have done it too. Just your guys like Stephen Thompson doesn't possess the skill set to wrestle, to chain wrestle the way that these other guys do.
right,
Um, but like, no, this has been there the whole time. This is Woodley's thing. He's not going to change. He doesn't want to change at this point. He would have done it already. Um, there's three clear options here. There's the one we kind of talked about earlier, which is Woodley stays at welterweight. He drops down to like a 10 ranking, and he becomes kind of a gatekeeper. He's fighting Jeff Neal's kind of those kind of guys, right? I don't think he's going to do that, right? Second option. This is a Chael option. I actually really like this option. Chael brought it up. He goes up to middleweight. You go up to middleweight. Just not a fan of that, huh? Okay. Chael options out.
no,
Chael options the middleweight. The only other option's retire, right?
that's the
What else?
best.
It's not like you can just be like, oh, I'm headed to Bellator. I'm like, oh, you're kind of in a contract. I mean, you're in your contract. You could pull a Corey Anderson and just be like, let me go, and just go to Bellator. But even still, dude, those welterweights in Bellator might fuck him up. They might, if they can. Some of those guys like Koreshkov, his whole game plan is doing stuff like that. He would totally do that to Woodley.
Yeah,
For him over there.
I'm just left, when you think about Woodley in the modern day, you're left with a fighter that he just doesn't have it. He just doesn't have it anymore. And it's not a physical ability thing, because it's not like, there are memes going around. There's always memes going around. Woodley didn't do anything. Woodley didn't throw a single punch, whatever. That's not true. Woodley did have moments in the fight where he did try to be offensive, and in some of those moments, there was a little flash, but it's the same problem in his last three fights, is that he's not putting enough of those moments together. And I don't know if it's a mental block for him. I don't know if it's a pacing issue. Like he's too conscious of not wanting to gas out.
Yeah.
So then in an effort to pace himself, he lets a whole fight go by. Or if he just doesn't want to be in there, man. I mean, he doesn't look there is at a certain point in all three of these fights, the title bout with Usman, the bout with Burns, and this one, there comes a moment when you're watching and you see Woodley and you're like, he doesn't like this anymore. He doesn't like being in here anymore. He's not gonna. He's not going to go out on his shield. That's not his style. He's going to make it to the 25-minute mark. He's not going to do much on the way there after a certain point, but he's going to make it. And
Survival mode.
And survival is a recipe for so much damage, so much bad, like when there's nothing coming. And we saw that last night. When there's nothing coming back, when you're Covington and you're marching down Woodley and there's nothing coming back, there's nothing to ward off your attack, there's nothing to ward off your will, the only thing that's possible to happen is that Woodley's going to get really hurt. And this time he broke his rib, but I just think that Woodley has become a very technically sound defensive fighter. And that is not what you want to be at the top level in mixed martial arts. You can't.
I look at it is Woodley won the welterweight belt and defended it 4 times.
Yeah.
With that style, which is like way beyond expectations, way better than he should have been able to do with that style for so long. So like, I feel like he well outperformed expectations. It's clear he's not going to get back to that spot again in the UFC. That chapter's closed. So we can move on past the Woodley and championship contention days. That's over with. Woodley's out of the top 5 of welterweight. So realistically, I don't see anything that he can gain from staying in the UFC other than further tarnishing his legacy.
Yeah, that's how I feel as well, and it sucks to see. It always sucks. It's always terrible to watch. I was rewatching some of his fights. I was watching Morning Combat. I found out that I have television through my apartment, right? And I found out that the package my apartment complex has includes Showtime.
Ooh.
So I was able to watch the Morning Combat Classics, the Strikeforce things. They're really good. If you ever find them out there on the interwebs or a free trial to Showtime or whatever, definitely watch them, check them out. But one of the fights was Tyron Woodley versus Tarek Saffiedine. That's a different guy. He's a different fighter. That fighter was aggressive. He came in hungry. and he was an aggressive wrestler. He would take you down and impose his will, and that unfortunately has kind of left his game. And kind of to wrap it up, at least for me, I just don't want to see him do it again. I just don't need to see him do it again because, like I said, this is a main event where we learned nothing. There was no new information, and as much as Woodley wants to say he's reinvented himself or found his edge or talked to his counselor and told little boy him that he is worthy. It's he just doesn't have it. Which sucks to say. It sucks to see. He's one of the best to ever do it, but that's not now.
No, it's over with. The fire is extinguished. A new generation of welterweight has risen.
Yeah, man, and so we had already mentioned Donald Cerrone, Nico Price. It was a very fun fight. We came like the main event. We came into it with our preconceived notions of where Cowboy Cerrone was at, where technically Nico Price was at. They delivered a super fun fight. Don't get me wrong. This fight was blood and guts and fun to watch. It ended in a draw, but we come away with it with kind of what we thought of Cowboy in general, which was he's still able to put on a hell of a show, but he's not able to take as hard of a shot. Some of these shots from Price were just, they weren't pinpoint. It wasn't a fist hitting the back of Cowboy's head. It was like Nico Price's arm was kind of even brushing the shoulders first and catching, and Cowboy would kind of do his little rocked cowboy thing. He's another guy. I'm not sure. Listen, after the fight we just saw, I'm down to watch him fight. But if I am his friend or family or whatever, I don't want him to do the rematch with Nico Price, and I don't want him to fight again.
No, whereas when I watched Woodley, you're like, he's done. But when you watch Cerrone, I'm not like he's done, but I feel like we're near the end. We're close to the end. He even acknowledges the end is near. A couple more years on Cerrone. That's it. His days of fighting for a title, it's not going to happen. That's fine. He's past that. He enjoys the fun fights, fighting, some action-packed brawls, fighting all the time, getting some records, that kind of stuff. He is a guy that I think will really benefit from going to Bellator at the very end of his career, where some guys like Chael to some extent, right, where you go through the grinder in the UFC, right? You get to a point where you're like, okay, like I'm only going to do maybe 3-4 more fights, another year, 2 years, and then I'm going to ease my way out of this thing. And Bellator has a nice way of being like, we got some guys over here. They have name value. We can do some nice, fun, exciting fights. They're not going to be the kind of stuff where if the end of your career, you ride out in the UFC, oh, okay, Cerrone, come in here against Khamzat Chimaev, and let's build up some kid off of just murking. Whereas, like, I'm not sure how many fights he has left on his deal, but let's say he does, a couple more fights at welterweight in the UFC. Take a look at what Bellator's got. Maybe go over there, have some fun, lightweight, welterweight fight. He could fuck around and roll in and pick up a Bellator belt. Potentially, you never know. Anything could happen over there. But that's kind of the point. We're near that with him. We're at the end.
Yeah, man. He's stated that making 55 is just a killer for him, and he is just looking at him again next to Nico Price. He just looks too small, man. He can
a rock and a hard place. He's the perfect 165er. He really is.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the general consensus coming out of last night's fight night is that we have a couple guys in the main event and the co-main event spot that should probably hang it up. A super exciting prospect in Khamzat Chimaev, and the rest of them. I mean, it wasn't not to disrespecting them. It was a very good card. It was a very fun card, but not a lot of star power beyond that. There were a couple surprises on the prelims. Not gonna lie, we had Derek Minner getting that guillotine win over TJ Laramie. Laramie, super highly touted prospect coming out of the Contender Series this season.
Bektic getting submitted.
He got submitted. He got submitted in 52 seconds. That was a really Minner was a heavy underdog. And when you've watched TJ Laramie work, you know why. And then in addition to that, Mirsad Bektic gets stopped again. Mirsad Bektic, again, he's an all-action fighter, but he's not what we thought he was when he first splashed onto the scene.
Yeah,
it seems.
Bektic's probably he should be concerned when he goes to sign his next contract with the UFC that they don't cut him. is what I'll say.
Yeah, and then we had that my favorite fight of the night, maybe because I'm a masochist, was Jessica Rose Clark and Sarah Alpar. Um, it was my favorite because of the drama, man. The drama in that fight was way more than any other fight on the card. Very possible illegal knee, but we watch a replay, an instant replay, which is supposed to end the fight. Spoiler alert: it did not, and we see the rear angle where we think it's totally an illegal blow. I was watching it and I was like, "Oh no, she ruined Jessica Rose Clark just ruined her like otherwise beautiful win, and she's going to get DQ'd now." And you just see this little sliver of light between the canvas and Sarah Alpar before she was about to sit down, and that's when she eats the knee. So it was, hey man, I've always said knees on the ground, knees on the ground. I want me some knees on the ground, and this was very close to that. This is what that would look like, and actually, it's the brutality of what that looked like
Yeah,
has
right.
has kind of swayed me from my position.
My favorite part, I don't know if you saw it, but they had Megan O'Leary did some sort of like interview, little clip it on segment where she like tried to interview one of the people, you know, that are responsible for this rules, and like their response they gave was that the rule on this had changed in the past week. Within the past week, this rule had been changed, but no one had been notified. And then
Huh?
like the rest of her questions were basically shoot off, and this was like a totally like this was them floundering in the moment type of situation of being like, we don't necessarily want to say that our ref did the wrong thing, but they ended up trying their final excuse was that they were using hybrid rules. The Vegas is now using hybrid rules, which is a combination of
The
the one
hybrid
and the other. Yeah. So
Right,
that was all
right.
a complete mess.
The
Fun,
hybrid rules.
fun card all around, really well.
Yeah, it was a fun card. So, kind of getting into the second half of things here, because I don't actually fun note a little behind the scenes. Here in Zoom land, it actually doesn't tell me how long the call has been going for. So we could have been recording for hold on, let's see. Do I have some information? I do not. So,
The
yeah, we'll
world
just
may never
yeah.
know.
Well, we'll know when I pause or stop the recording. Let me. Okay, I'm going to.
Oh, we're back. Are we back?
Yeah. We didn't go anywhere.
You went. You were gone for about 30 seconds. But we're back. We're good.
I'm back.
We're good.
You
We're good.
sure?
I'm good. We're all good on this end.
Okay. Cool.
There'll be a small cut in the middle where you'll have to clip it together.
Well, I think because I'm recording on my side and I never froze like on
You
my
never froze.
camera.
Did I
I
freeze?
never froze. No, you
Oh,
never froze either.
oh,
So, because I'm looking at my Wi-Fi, I have excellent connect. That's weird. Oh well, whatever. Forget about that. Let's get into the second half of things
there we
where
go.
we already talked about what was. Now let's talk about what's to come in the form of UFC 253, Israel Adesanya taking on Paulo Costa um, for the middleweight championship. And then we have Jan Blachowicz, nailed it,
Yeah.
Dominick Reyes vying for the undisputed light heavyweight championship. The rest of the card, some highlights, some things I'm excited about. Maybe you can mention some things you're excited about. I'm super excited about Kai Kara-France versus Brandon Royval. Those guys always bring the heat. Kai Kara-France consistently fights to decisions, but they're always super fun to watch. In addition to that, we have Sijara Eubanks coming back. She just fought, and she's on another card. right.
On the other side of the world.
It's 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks. Diego Sanchez makes his return against Jake Matthews in a welterweight bout.
Mm-hmm. Another
Then
one at the end of the road.
and then we also have one thing that's cool here. We have a Contender Series alum, William Knight, who just recently won via those heavy elbows against the cage. If you've not seen the replay or the highlights from that, William Knight, look it up. It's brutal as hell. William Knight, the cornerstone of his fighting style is that he's going to get in the worst position possible, usually belly down, flattened out in the middle of the fight, and then somehow come back and knock a man dead. He's done it. I mean, his last 2 or 3 fights, his last 2 or 3 wins, he's been in literally the worst position he could possibly be in minutes into the bout, and then he just comes back to win. I love watching the dude fight. He looks like a superhero. But yeah, man, let's take it back to really the main draw here, because those are kind of just they're big fights. They're their own personal Super Bowls for all these fighters. But for the top 4 men, that's really what we're tuning in to see, and that's kind of what the UFC expects. What do you expect to see out of Reyes and Blachowicz?
I am not that high on Blachowicz. Not to say that I'm low on Blachowicz, but Blachowicz has actually been around for a while. He's not like some new addition. I've watched Blachowicz lose to Gustafsson. I've watched him fight in the UFC for a long, long time. He's had ups and downs. He's been knocked out by Thiago Santos. I heavily favor Dominick Reyes to win. Dominick Reyes pushed John Jones to the absolute brink. I think Dominick Reyes has the skill set to be the rightful champion here. How long he keeps it, who knows? That whole division's kind of just a total toss-up right now. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. I was saying that to you on Saturday, is how excited I am to get a living, breathing light heavyweight division again. We haven't had it in a long time, and that is 10 years. That is to the credit of mostly John Jones, but then even when Jones was gone, there was Cormier there also holding it down. And then we're right back to Jones. So I'm really excited to see the light heavyweight division mature and grow. And because we were saying that Saturday's fight, Johnny Walker and Ryan Spann, we came to this point where we're like, this doesn't feel elite.
Mm-hmm.
But we're rewriting what that looks like at light heavyweight now. That's what's happening, and that's why I'm so excited for Saturday.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. Like you said, Blachowicz. He's on a tear. His last loss was Thiago Santos. But if we go all the way back to his win over Devin Clark, he is 7 out of his last 8 with 3 in a row. Split decision over Souza, but a couple of really nice stoppage wins over the likes of Luke Rockhold and Corey Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
And then staring back at him across the cage is Dominick Reyes, which, like you said, took Jones to the brink. And before that, had some pretty solid fights. He knocked a few people into the shadow realm. He had a couple decisions. The OSP decision, I don't know about that. That's marked as a decision on paper, but I saw that. It was no decision. The end of that 3rd round was touch and go.
My gut tells me that Dominick Reyes and Thiago Santos are going to emerge as like the new John and DC of the division. but we shall see. I have a feeling that those are your two elite guys. Now that may just be because I've seen both those guys go against John Jones and show very promising aspects against him, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know how much of a bummer it is that Corey Anderson waited all that time, and then right before John leaves the division and it breaks wide open, he's like, "Just let me leave." He just leaves. He could have waited around, and he would have been like a top 5 guy today.
yeah, but he saw the writing on the wall, man. The
I mean,
top
he got
5
knocked dead
guy.
by Woodley.
Yeah, yeah, and then I respect, honestly, I respect Corey Anderson a ton for doing what he did, taking an honest look at the way his career was going and saying, "Hey, man, I was chasing glory. It doesn't look like I'm going to get as much as I thought I was. Now I need to refocus and go after those dollar bills."
Especially after the face thing. Oh, even if you're following him on
Dude, that was
Instagram.
horrible.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
brutal. That face
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
thing he had. He passed out after the damage he took in that knockout loss to. Oh, terrible.
So to round things out, let's take a look at the main event. Obviously, super hyped for this one. We've got Israel Adesanya 19-0 facing down against Paulo Costa 13-0. One thing that's obviously interesting about this fight is the optics of it. We got tall, lanky Israel Adesanya, who's a sniper and slick and a counter striker. And then you got Paulo Costa, this Brazilian gorilla who storms forward, puts the leather in your face, and hopes you go to sleep, or he helps you go to sleep. This style matchup is one of the classic archetypes of combat. This type of matchup, the counter striker versus the hyper aggressive bulldog, and you just don't. And in a fight like this, two undefeated fighters, I'm not sure who wins. What do you think about it?
I got okay. So after the fights on Saturday night with Woodley and Covington, sometime during the night, towards the next one, this video comes out. Both these guys are in Abu Dhabi getting ready for the fight. Izzy and Costa, they meet each other in the hallway. They dapping it up. They're boys. They're like, "What's up? You looking skinny?" They're chilling. They're having a great time. We see this all the time with these bad blood guys, but I have to admit that one was a bit shocking to me, and it was a bit shocking to the rest of the MMA community too, because people have been making a big deal out of this past couple of days that we've been sold something here, because everything we've been told between these two is them hating each other. It's bad blood. They've been yelling at each other. They can't stand each other. This is that real bad blood. There's serious heat here. I don't think that's real at all. I don't think they have any beef whatsoever. I think they're totally cool with each other. I'm not sure that they were aware that exchange was being recorded. They probably didn't want that to leak out. But I'm interested now that that's out and everyone's seen that, how going into this fight they do their media. Do they still dial it up and be like, "He's trash. Let's see him. I'm gonna throw a monster can at him," or are they just kind of like, "Yeah, no, we're cool. We're boys. It's fine."
I think that there's
Typically the fighters save that kind of stuff for as soon as the fight's over, right? As soon as it's over, your Masvidal and your Diaz are like, "Nah, we were actually playing together the whole time. We were actually boys." Or your Connor and your Nate is like, "We're in on it. We're here to get some money, son." But you do that. You don't typically pull that card a week before weigh-ins.
Yeah, but at the same time, like how much of it is really how much of it is real bad blood? It's like, where do you draw the line? Because I feel like so much of what we call bad blood in MMA is really just two guys with supreme confidence. And that is what gets them fired up. What gets them fired up isn't necessarily a conflict. It's the fact that, like, one guy is supremely confident that he's going to take away the other. Not only is he going to win, But most of the time in MMA, it's I'm gonna knock you out, or I'm gonna submit you. It's not only I'm going to beat you, I'm going to take away your ability to even compete.
Mm.
And both guys are so supremely confident in their ability to do that. I just think so much of what we think of as heated trash talk is just an extension of hyper competitiveness. Um,
Jennifer Bravado.
yeah, man, I think that because I saw that video today as well, and I honestly, again, I watch MMA to study. I watch MMA to learn things that I want to know. Does Ariel does Izzy's style hold up against a marauder like Paulo Costa? Like I want to know because if we want a pressure test of Izzy's style, you can't find a much better pressure test than Paulo Costa.
Yeah.
And at the same time, can Paulo Costa just bulldoze through everyone? Because if he can bulldoze through the sniper style of Israel Adesanya, then I'm not sure who stops him from being able to just roll them over.
Yeah. I just don't see it happening. I just think Costa got his one win in the top 10. They got him his title shot. It's cool. 13-0 is dope. Son, it's cool. He's gone to 3 rounds once, never been in a 5-round main event, never had to go to the 4th and 5th rounds before. Izzy's been here a million times, done this, had a whole career kickboxing before this. Excellent counter fighter. And Costa doesn't put people out one shot. He's not a rumble. He's not one shot dead people. He's a volume guy. And yeah, I think Izzy snipes him. Izzy snipes him, TKOs him, puts him out. That's how I'm feeling about it.
It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. That's what is so intriguing to me about the fight, is that each way that a dude could win is entirely possible. I do lean your direction that Izzy is the more likely. Um, but again, we just don't know till they get in there, and that's why I watch. That's why I mean that's
Love it.
it. That's why I watch. I have to know, and I have to know what happens with these styles. But but yeah, man, that's Saturday. Is there anything else you wanted to anything that stuck out to you about this card beyond the co-main and main event?
Not particularly. No, that's what I'm there for. I'm there for the title fights. Overall, I feel like the card this past weekend was a little bit deeper. Um, but it's
Hmm.
fine. Like you mentioned earlier, you mentioned the highlights. Diego, another guy that's in the tail end of his career. 3 more fights. That'd probably be a wrap for him. But no, yeah, we're there for the main and co-main.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll be watching from Shane Young to Ladovit Klein, all the way to the main event. But yeah, I'm expecting. Sometimes fun fights like this, like the main event, elevate the rest of the card.
Mhm.
I'm really hoping that the rest of the card gets the energy
Mm,
gets heightened,
yeah,
because
big
that
time in
happens
Fight Island.
sometimes.
Yeah.
The first fight back on Fight Island. Um, I can't imagine that this card doesn't deliver
Mm,
something in the way of some phenomenal entertainment.
yeah.
Knock on wood, real quick. But yeah, man, I think so. We talked about we talked about Saturday's fights. Talked about UFC 252. Um, really the main draws of that card. Um, I know in the future we want to have uh, some different segments
Ooh.
There we go. I've made it. I've made it so far. I'm fighting the bug and the pause bug, but I'm wearing down. Um, so yeah, dude. I think first episode is in the book. What are your thoughts on the end at the end of the first episode? What do you want to leave? What do you want to leave the people with heading into next week? So you'll what do you want to tell them?
People, you need to know this, all right? We're just getting started. This is
Right,
just the beginning. We're only
right.
going to get better. We're only going to grow this thing. It's going to be wild, all right? We were the MMA brothers once before, and now we're sparring partners. We're reborn. We're taking this thing to the next level, all right? You sit down, buckle up the seatbelt, and enjoy the ride, all right? We're blasting this thing off. Give us 5 years. You'll see us up there with Chael and Helwani, all right? Helwani, get ready. We're coming. All right, dogs. We'll see
5
you next
years.
time.
Yeah, well, this has been Sparring Partners. I'm Coby McKinley. That's Brad Jones. Uh, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. New episodes will be up. Um, you know, we intend Mondays. Uh, that's our intention is Mondays. Record Sunday, post Monday. You can find it on YouTube. You will soon be able to find it on SoundCloud. And when we get our act together with the old rest of the interwebs, where all your favorite podcasts are found. Um, yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week after UFC 253. Good night, everybody.
Peace.